This is Off Track.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah.
Terrific.
I tried to warn people.
I just wanted to be known.
You guys.
It will now be every episode. At least something will be consumed as audibly as possible. Hopefully off the top of every single episode. Although I did see some, these are actually good. Made good little cluster, granola clusters. Wow. I just bought these at the airport last night. When I couldn't get food, well, we'll get into that on Thursday. Last one, I promise. Also a convenient way to burn a little bit of time. You're either muted, Tim, or for some reason I can't hear you talking. There we go. I just heard noise. Nope. I heard you rustle with the microphone.
How about now?
Now I got you.
Man, we're just burning time, which is a good thing because there's nothing to talk about in the racing world today. Especially for somebody who works for both IndyCar and F1 TV.
This is a tough day to be me. It's a tough day for me to have an opinion-based podcast that is racing-centric when I am currently, and my two biggest employers are F1 and Fox via IndyCar. It's or IndyCar via Fox.
It'd be nice if FAF or PFAF could get involved somehow.
Yeah,
let's round it out.
Let's just have them petition for like Petit Le Mans to be held on Memorial Day weekend. So obviously, Tim, you're talking about the news that came out about the F1 schedule.
Yeah.
Which lands the Montreal Formula One race, the closest race geographically to the state of Indiana, on the day of the Indy 500.
A 2 p.m. start time. So assuming no weather delays, starting right as the 500 is coming to a conclusion.
No, we'll be dead in the middle of the race.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
If it was starting at the conclusion,
right.
If it was starting at the conclusion of the race, that'd be fine.
I meant like you guys always say the Indy 500 is 2 races: survive for 150 laps, race for 50 laps. So, yes. But I guess I was in my head, I was thinking a noon start time, but that's noon broadcast start time, 12:40-ish green flag.
I mean, we were on air at 10 a.m., but
that was the pre-show, though. I'm talking about the actual broadcast window that's listed as the Indy 500.
That is true. You're right. Yeah. So let's talk about this. Not only have we cannibalized what was the coolest day in motorsports, it was motorsports fans' Christmas Day.
Yes.
By having the Monaco Grand Prix first thing in the morning, then you watch the Indy 500, and then you'd hunker down and buckle in for the Coca-Cola 600. We knew that Monaco was moving.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever found out exactly why.
That's a good point.
I don't know if it's because they didn't want to be on the same day as the 500, because I think next year it goes Monaco, Indy, and then Le Mans 3 weekends in a row. I think that might be spoken out of turn. Again, this is not a fact-based show, everybody.
No, we do very little research.
And no follow-up.
And occasionally, you guys just don't show up.
Tune in later this week for more on that. So whatever. So it's moving. This one was so surprising, though, because I literally had one in particular example of a very prominent member of the Formula One community reach out to me being like, I'm so happy I can finally go to the Indy 500. Where should I stay? I was, trying to walk him through how to do Indy. And then he texted me like a day. Yeah. Well, it's Saturday night. That's where you got to be. A day or two later, just get a text being like, scrap that. Just saw the calendar for F1 and they did it on the same weekend. It's absolutely bonkers. It's baffling. It makes no sense. Let's remind everybody that Montreal F1 is held on a track that's a park. It's like the only race they have all year. So it's not like there's a date issue if you push it a week or something like that. Now, if it is in fact Le Mans the weekend after Indy, so I could see F1 not wanting to push Montreal to that weekend because I feel like a bunch of the reserve drivers and stuff in F1 are in fact driving at Le Mans. But also they have more than one reserve driver. So deal with that problem rather than taking on the biggest race in the world head to head. This makes no sense. It's going to.
So I saw a lot of, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, please. I
saw a lot of stuff on Twitter that was pointing out like they're not going to really, it's not going to be a competition in the United States. The Indy 500 is going to blow it out of the water. Most people expect. And I think that's probably fair. Maybe it'll cut in a little bit, but I don't think it'll be much. But it will matter for people trying to watch the 500 in Europe. It will matter for like international fans that want to watch the 500 that are just not going to have the same options or ability to.
Yes, certainly. But F1 obviously doesn't care about what IndyCar's audience is. So it will hurt European IndyCar fans. Well, it won't hurt their ability to watch the race. You just have to choose at some point.
I disagree. I think F1 does care. I mean, I know that it's not a comparable fan base and viewing thing, but it's hard to view this as anything other than trying to hurt IndyCar.
It seems very intentional that it seems that F1 has noticed that IndyCar is on the rise. It has noticed that with Fox, our viewership is growing exponentially. And it does seem like a direct shot at our biggest race. Now, you're right, Tim. The ratings won't even be close. Indy will win by a mile, but it might take some of the fans that watched IndyCar, that got into IndyCar off the back of getting into F1, off the back of Drive to Survive or whatever. It's ignorant to think that every race fan is just going to de facto choose the 500 over an F1 race if they're competing head to head. I don't think that's true. I think this does hurt IndyCar. I think this does hurt our viewership. It hurts fans' opportunity to go see both races. Like it's just silly, man. It's just silly. Nobody wins because the ratings for Montreal will be worse. They'll be decidedly worse. They'll get a much bigger hit than ours will.
Which is crazy to me because Liberty seems to be very focused on trying to build an American audience for F1. And they've done a lot of smart moves to do that. And they've been paying off very well over the last few years. So this just feels like such an unforced error. And maybe there's a part of the equation I'm not seeing, but...
Look, there always is, right? We don't know all the facts. But you're right. You look at the U.S. races and their ratings for F1. They're double. They're 2.5, sometimes 3x what the average F1 race gets when they are domestic and in that sort of prime Sunday afternoon time slot. Now you're not, and look, let's call a spade a spade. 9 times out of 10, an F1 race is settled in the first 5 laps, right? So whereas Indy, you're going to want to stay right to the end. I could see some people just flipping over for the first 5 laps in Montreal and then flipping back over to the 500 because the race is usually pretty much done by then, short of some safety car, which certainly can happen in Montreal. But like the fact that I was looking forward to being able to go to Montreal for only the second time in almost 20 years. There's just so many racing fans that would have taken that opportunity. It's been a clash with so many races in IndyCar over the years. Like it was a clash with Texas for like a decade, and then it clashed with, I don't know, something else. So we've not been able to go. I think there was one year we were able to go. I think it was maybe 2021. And it was great. And there was a lot of IndyCar fans that went, that I know that were there. I was there. It was awesome. But you're right. It seems calculated. It seems intentional, which is a compliment to IndyCar at the end of the day.
Yeah. They wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't a threat.
I think that's the only way to take that move without clarification as to what the reasoning is, which I haven't seen any. I also haven't done a lot of digging into it. Again, not a big research show, but yeah, I think it's a loss for. I think it's a loss for IndyCar. I think it's a loss for F1. I think it's a loss for the fans of both series. And the only positive in it is that I see it as a compliment from the IndyCar side that F1 wants to try to slow down the momentum of the 500. It ain't going to work. it's not going to work. But even if it affects the rating a tiny bit, it's not going to work for what the overall momentum of the sport is at the moment. So it's a bummer, Tim. It's a bummer. So the one thing that was said about why this might be the case is to keep Miami and Montreal back to back for, I guess, quote unquote, sustainability reasons or something, which makes sense if they were back to back weeks. They're back to back races, but there's like 2 weeks between them. So everybody's going to leave North America and then they're going to come back to North America.
It's also weird to me because you're at a point now where McLaren has an F1 and IndyCar team. By this point, Andretti will have, or Cadillac will have, Andretti will have Cadillac and F1 and IndyCar team. Prema will have F2 and IndyCar. Like, there's enough overlap now. Myers on the board of Liberty has Meyer Shank Racing. Like, it's odd. It just like, I understood when Monaco was on the same day because they had that date for however many years, not nearly as many as the Indy 500 is at Memorial Day weekend. I got that, right? There was history there, but it didn't make sense. Okay, there's so much overlap now. Why would you move Monaco only to put something else on that date?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
I know we're not ever going to go back to the days of F1 drivers coming over and doing the 500. As much fun as I think that would be, but I don't know. Was there anything else on the calendar that surprised you?
Again, I'm looking at it and I'm getting increasingly more annoyed. Because if the whole point is to have Miami and Canada on the same stretch, right? You can move Canada a week sooner. And if anything, it makes more sense from a sustainability point, and not maybe people would actually stay in North America. You're still kind of messing with IndyCar then, because you're hitting qualifying where you will actually probably pull some of the viewers. Right? Yeah,
like if you're trying to choose between an F1 race and Indy qualifying, I'll take qualifying 10 days out of 10, but
I was going to say, if you're trying to choose between that, you've never watched Indy 500 qualifying, because that's arguably more exciting and stressful and cool than the race and any other race. It's actually the most tense weekend of the entire year. But yes, look, I'm not gonna ask F1 to build their calendar around our one hallmark event here. But at the same time, yeah, put it on qualifying weekend. Fine, at least that's somewhat defendable. I can tell you what day the Indy 500 is going to be on in 2047. That's how this works. You have a gap to put a race not on the biggest race of the year in the world, and you chose not to do it. So again, if their argument is to be back to back with Miami, wrong. You did it wrong. That's not good enough. If there's another reason, cool. Again, there's always more to it in the story, but I don't like that they're not sharing what that is, unless it is just a middle finger to IndyCar, which would be unfortunate. And I think it's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt us. So, c'est la vie.
You mean it's going to hurt us more than it's going to hurt us, since you're split allegiance?
Stop it. Obviously, F1's got a new track coming on the calendar in Madrid. So the second race in Spain, which is in September, which should be pretty cool. I always like seeing new venues come on. Zandvoort's back on a rotational basis, which is good. I like that event. And otherwise, there's 2 triple headers next year, and they're the last 6 races of the year, which was the case 2 years ago, or last year, sorry, not this year. Which is a bummer, because I usually work all those, and triple headers are tough. This year, one of them's broken up.
Yeah, I remember after your first triple header, you'd be like, "Oh, that was a thing." That was, which is crazy to me. It kind of speaks to what Buxton's point about he can commute from England, and this is still less difficult than
considerably less travel. Yeah.
Speaking of which, we gotta have the Fox booth back on. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're definitely going to make that happen.
I don't know. It's hard because it just sucks. It's, everything in motorsport has seemed to be going really well for IndyCar and F1. Obviously F1's had this massive jump from Drive to Survive, but IndyCar with the Fox, the momentum, it's just like, you know what are we doing? What happened to rising tide lifts all ships?
I'm trying really hard to not just be like the grumpy old guy in this and only look at the negatives. But the problem is I don't see the other side of it, right? Like what I try to do, what I try to do in these situations, like I have my emotional response, right? Which is usually whatever. And then I try to like sit back and be like, okay, let's look at this from the other side. Could we have got here thinking with the shoe on the other foot? And I don't see it. I don't see why this makes sense for anybody, but it is what it is.
Obviously, I'll be going to Montreal next year.
Thank God. Kind of tired. It's actually all right. Look, I'm going to admit it.
You found the positive.
I pushed for it to be this weekend just so that way we could force Tim to go somewhere else. For editorial purposes, we need you to go get some stories. Alex is going to be busy. I'm going to be busy on the 500 stuff. We need you to cover the F1 stuff because we're not going to be able to watch it.
Okay. Let me know if we're not allowed to talk about this, but this just popped up in my head now. I'm curious. I know that with Toronto, there are issues with some members of teams not being allowed in Canada because are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Because, Canada's pretty strict if you have anything on your record, particularly DUIs and things like that. Does F1 have a similar issue?
That is a great question, man. That is a great question. Because they go to some places where considerably more strict than Canada.
Yeah.
So that's a very good question. I'm not sure. Let me do some digging. On that. Or do they just have like some kind of diplomatic immunity thing because it's F1 and they can wave the wand and everyone just goes in isolation in a little pocket?
I feel like if there was a wand that could be waved for Canadian immigration, John Green would have figured it out. And we know that he hasn't.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like we still need to make a call to somebody in Canada about that.
You're the guy I would call. You're the call I would make.
Yeah, when I said we, that was like the race car driver we.
Got it. Yeah.
We're bad at saying I, so we just always default to we. No, I've definitely heard of a story where a member of the F1 paddock was not allowed to go to a certain country. It was for a much more dramatic offense than a DUI.
Love it.
And
gonna have to tell me about this offline.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this on the air. But like for the more sort of casual misdemeanors and mild felonies, is there anywhere that, I don't know. Because the thing about F1 too, though, remember, is like a lot of the positions on teams have multiple people and they rotate through, right? It's like your core group of staff. Like, I mean, obviously the driver, race engineer, strategist, like the key engineering people. But I feel like even on the mechanic side, there's probably a few people that rotate, like, and you might do like 20 of the 24 races, but you have a couple off or something like that. So there might be some strategery around who goes to which races and who skips certain ones for issues like that. I don't know.
All right. Well, let us know what you think online. Tweet us, Instagram us. Don't DM us. I'm so bad at reading those. James can attest. I have like 200 unread texts. I'm not going to check the
It gets me so upset,
DMs.
man. It gets me so upset.
But, tweet us. That kind of thing.
And just make sure you tune into the Indy 500 next year, Memorial Day weekend on Fox.
When is it?
It's Memorial Day weekend.
Is that new?
No, it's actually something that's fairly well established, Tim, and it's going to continue being then until the dawn of time.
End of time, but yeah, sure.
Sorry, to the dusk of
it's
time.
It's going to go all the way back.
Yes, we're going to do a full cycle. We're going to go through time and then through the dark ages and then back to the start of time again, and we'll still be running Indy 500 on Memorial Day.
It's the Futurama style of time passage, if you're familiar with that episode.
Nobody is familiar with that episode.
That wasn't for you. That's for like the two people who are going to be like, holy Futurama reference.
I like how you just swore on an episode where we said no swearing for your own editing. Good luck with that one. This has been Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Off Track is part of the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please give a 5-star rating and leave a review. Subscribe today wherever you stream your podcasts. We are at Ask Off Track on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Hinchtown and at Alexander Rossi. If you want to follow Tim, though we have no idea why you would, he's at the Tim Durham on Twitter. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for exclusive video content. Off Track is produced by Tim Durham, and by that we mean Tim.